right, so I just hit record. It's time to get started. Welcome everybody. It's really nice to be able to start this journey with all of you. We're going to be in for quite a fantastic project. We're going to dig in to a lot of different thinking over the next semester. However, this is the first stage of that larger project with blended foundations. And so we'll be working together in this course for the 2 weeks now as we begin December, and then we'll come back in January with another 6 weeks of blended foundations. And so what I'd like to do is just take a couple of minutes to make sure that everybody has everything that you needed opened in Zoom and ready to go. We're gonna do a quick introduction and just kind of go around and say who we are, what our role is, and especially if we're people at the department level, then it would be a really good opportunity to talk about what content area you came from or grade level. And so that way we have a little bit about everybody's background. And so in Zoom, I apologize for those of you who've heard this like 3 or 4 times, but it's a really nice thing to make sure that everybody's on the same page about. Up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a toggle that can take you from speaker view to gallery view. If you click on gallery view, then you can see everybody's squares moving across together, and which is really nice because I know Barb mentioned this during the orientation, but this really is an active PLC. And so you'll have your mics on, your video on, we'll be talking and collaborating, sharing screens and doing lots of different things. And so the more that we get used to this platform, the sooner we can dig into that collaborative discourse. And so we'll go ahead and do the introductions rather than post in the chat or anything like that. We'll go ahead and just have everybody unmute and just briefly say who you are, what your role is, and your content and grade level. And actually, one of the things that I think is kind of helpful too for me, and thinking about where you're at in the state and how close or far you are from each other, is just sharing where you're calling from tonight. Now, some evenings that might be more interesting than others, depending on, you know, if you're coming from work or if you're on the road or whatever is going on in your professional or personal life. And so my name is Kimba Rael. I am with part of the LDC team. I am the manager of professional learning content and coach certification. And so this is kind of my go-to work that I get really excited about. I'm coming from San Luis, Colorado, which is way in the southern end of Colorado. I'm about 12 miles north of the New Mexico border. And so about as south in Colorado as you can get. I am a former English teacher. I taught 9-12 in a really small rural district in San Luis, Colorado. And I actually just left the classroom this May. So still adjusting to not having kids and not grading papers, and it feels kind of weird, but I'm really enjoying this work with people like yourselves. So we'll go ahead and just go around. Why don't we go to my left or right, depending, no, left. We'll go this way. We'll have Kelly start. Go ahead, Kelly.
I'm Kelly Philbeck, and I'm the Director of Continuous Improvement in Bourbon County. So I am joining you from Paris, Kentucky tonight. And I'm also helping co-facilitate with Kimba. So if you have any questions, I'm monitoring the chat and trying to answer anything and everything that I can. So just let me know if you have any questions.
I'm Rick Howell. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. Teach 8th grade social studies. I'm the teacher lead in my building. And this is my, I think, 4th year in LDC, something like that.
Fantastic. So you remember Module Creator and all that good stuff.
Yes.
Oh, me too. Does anybody go far enough back to remember that actual like Excel spreadsheets before we had Module Creator, right? Oh my gosh, what a road it has been, right? Excellent. Oh, it's good to have you here. All right, let's just go directly down from you.
Cindy, maybe?
I can go. Okay. I am Gray, and I'm calling from Lexington, Kentucky, but I now work for the Department of Education. I'm the secondary level literacy consultant. And like you, Kimba, I just left the classroom in May. I had 15 years of experience in the high school English classroom, and I am loving my new job, but I am missing teenagers so much. So I'm adjusting. My friends are teasing me because they say I'm crazy if I am missing grading the papers. I don't miss that, but I do miss the students. And I'm excited about this project because my main work has been with the English 2 EOC. So I cannot wait to see the connections that we can make to LDC and how that can help teachers instructionally as they are transitioning to this new assessment system.
Excellent.
I'll go next. Janice Markham, and I am from Ashland, Kentucky. I work for Boyd County Public Schools. I'm the Chief Academic Officer. I work with curriculum, instruction, PD, assessment, and a little bit of everything else. So I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic.
This is Cindy. I'll go next. I think my view is different than yours. My gallery doesn't look the same, I think. I'm Cindy Parker. I used to work at the Department of Education, so I've been involved with LDC from the very beginning, back all the way to 2010, I guess. And since I retired from the department, I'm currently working at the Central Kentucky Education Co-op, supporting teachers in the development of common units of study through the Common Assignment System, which uses LDC. And I also teach part-time at the University of Kentucky, and I also embed LDC in the coursework with my teacher prep students. I am a former high school English teacher and excited to be part of the group.
Fantastic.
I'm Rick Daniel. I'm Jefferson County. I am the social studies curriculum specialist. So I'm responsible grades K through 12 social studies. And we started about 3 years ago with a partnership with Facing History and ourselves. And so that was my first introduction to LDC, and that's I've been doing a lot of work with them through LDC. And this past year, Denise, who is our middle school language arts specialist, asked me to help her aboard the middle school LDC project here in Jefferson County.
Fantastic. So Kevin, welcome. We're just going around doing some introductions as far as who we are, our role, where we're at, and what our content or grade level was prior to leaving the classroom if we're no longer in the classroom. And so Holly, we still have you, and then Kevin will have you dive right in, okay?
Okay. Hi, my name is Holly Bloodworth, and I'm in Murray, Kentucky. I'm at the West Kentucky Educational Cooperative and working as the literacy consultant. This is my first year in this position. Previously, I was a K-3 teacher and loved that, but really enjoying this job too. So looking forward to working with you all. And I hope you can hear me. I'm having some trouble hearing you all.
Oh, shucks. Well, we can hear you. I'm sorry you're having trouble. If you need
Okay,
to, you can always always disconnect headphones and just put your computer volume up if that's what works easiest for you.
I have really thin walls here in my little cubby hole. So I'm trying to not be too loud for everyone else because it's 3 o'clock here. So we're all still here at work.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Well, thanks, Holly. And let us know if we need to repeat anything because you just missed it, okay?
Thank you.
Yep. All right, Kevin.
Hi, I'm Kevin. I teach at Newburgh Middle School. This is my 26th year here. And so I have been involved with LDC for going on, 4 years now, and was invited to join this group. And I'm just really excited to, I'm finding things that are really going to impact my
skills and the students as well. So I'm excited.
Excellent. Well, I'm really excited to start this journey with all of you. I had the pleasure of being in the first cohort here in Colorado, and so I think we've all had really similar kind of LDC journeys and how it's moved over the last several years and changed. It's exciting to hear common assignment and different projects that I know Kentucky and Colorado have had some nice connections with, and so it's pretty exciting to be able to deepen those in different ways. So, all right. Well, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and dive right into our work for tonight. I'm going to share my screen and pull up a slide deck. Now, I'm only going to stay in the slide deck for maybe about 10 minutes, and then we're going to dig into some work. And so when we talk about really trying to keep this collaborative discourse, making it an active learning PLC, we really mean it. We strive to hit that 80-20 rule. This is probably the one that gets the furthest from it, but the rest we should be a lot more closer to it. For our PLCs, we'll be meeting, oh my gosh, this says Tuesday. Holy cow, I need to fix that right now for our group. I'm so sorry about that. We'll be meeting every Monday here in this Zoom space. And so that link that you used today from the calendar invite is going to be a persistent link that you can use every single time we meet. Our meeting number won't ever change. And so that makes it a little easier, and that's part of why we use Zoom. We'll be using the chat feature of Zoom. Being able to see each other in gallery view is really helpful, and you'll have opportunities to share your screen and interact in different ways as well. One of the things that you're going to want to do, if you have not already, is open up the syllabus in a separate window. Now, because I'm sharing my screen, there are two ways that you can get to that other window. If my screen is taken over your whole screen, if you hit escape, that should allow the Zoom window to shrink down, and you can maneuver between your own window and the Zoom screen. The other way you can do it is if you go up to the top of the screen, you have, you hover over, a little drop down will come up that lets you choose exit full screen. And so when you exit full screen, then it becomes just a typical window that you can manipulate. Now I hear a little bit of echo. Whenever we get that echo or something like that happens, you'll just want to make sure that you're muted. You will be unmuting when you talk, and we'll try to give plenty of wait time to do that, but that helps ensure that the audio stays pretty clean for everybody as they're listening.
Kimba.
So I'm going to go ahead. Yeah.
Carrie was having some technical difficulties, and she's just been able to join us.
Oh, perfect. So let me stop sharing, and we'll just take a second and say hi to everybody. Hi, Carrie. We have a new member to our group who just joined. If you have it in gallery view, you should see everybody, and you'll see that Carrie just joined us. And so that way, as she comes in, she doesn't just come into a screen and is totally unaware of who's all on the call. We'll give her a wave. Hi, Carrie. Oh, you can't hear us? It looked like you unmuted for a second. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, and we're going to get back to the syllabus. And what you're going to want to do is take a look at the syllabus. This will be our home base each week as far as our work that we'll be completing, as well as keeping track of resources, links, access to recordings, and all the materials that you're going to need across this course. And so we are here in week 1, and so we're going to be taking a look at the syllabus, thinking about the teacher competencies and why to do this work, and then digging into analyzing some student work to look at evidence of standards. Here are your instructions for the asynchronous work. We're going to talk about that at the end of this session, but each week you'll see what we'll be doing that week, and then our asynchronous work. I just want to point out something, and I'm sorry to scroll so much. There are several resources here that are going to be places that we'll use often across this course. However, we also are adding all of the weekly recordings and chats here at the bottom. And so if you missed a session or you want to go back and review something, the chat with the recording will be linked here. And so it'll be one document, and at the top of that chat document will be a link to the recording from that week's session. And so because we have two groups, the Monday recordings will be right here, and Friday groups recordings will be right there. So any questions about the syllabus or the structure of it now that you've had a chance to take a look at it since orientation? Feel free to unmute and ask questions, or you can post questions in the chat. And one thing you'll notice, wait time in Zoom is a little bit different because you want to allow people a chance to unmute. All right, hearing none, I'm gonna move forward. So part of what I want to start with is framing why we do this work and really starting to think about LDC as a curriculum alignment system. This is kind of a shift for some of us as far as where we began with LDC and how you can think about using LDC as a resource to meet the needs of what you really care about working on in your district. So it's about making it job embedded and using it to align things within your instruction, within your curriculum, within your system. And so I want to give you a frame of some ways to think about it. And we'll use the next few minutes to think about how to use and implement LDC as a curriculum alignment system. And this is really reflected in our theory of action, which is based on the work of Richard Elmore. Our belief is that there are three sides to the instructional core, which is how you improve student learning at scale. Now, in order to improve student learning in a system, you need to raise the level of the content students are being taught, which is what the standards did for us. You need to increase the level of students' active learning in that core rigorous content and increase the skill and knowledge the teachers bring to the teaching of that content. Now, we need to support teachers in learning different ways to engage students in high-level content, both through the selection and instruction, because honestly, if we knew different ways, we'd already be doing them in every classroom. Because, I mean, really, teachers are doing their best for students already every day. And so it's thinking about how do we use these three levers together to lift the thinking of students and your system in every classroom. I know a lot of you have been active in this work for quite some time, and you've seen the changes in your classroom, and how do we build that more systemically? And so this is where LDC comes in with an assignment strategy. The things that students experience most are assignments. Some of them rigorous, some of them worth their time, and some of them need a little bit of boost. And so if we can have impact on the quality of assignments that kids are experiencing at scale, we are really going to experience systems change. Now, this work is really difficult to do alone. So we've brought together different organizations and thought partners to support us in this work. You can count on these organizations and partners who bring various specialties from science, social studies, to researchers out in the field to build quality templates and assignments that teachers can tap into to grow their practice and build the quality of the assignments and engagement with high quality content for kids. So, that felt like a mouthful. I want to share with you a story of a curriculum alignment system within a school and how they used these different tools and resources and framing of LDC to really work together and determine the challenges or problems of practice that they were experiencing within their system to create strong ways of addressing those. And so the challenge we all face is supporting teachers who support kids in doing more complex work and not treating it as just a one and done fad where you go to the professional learning and then it's done, right? But really trying to do it in a systematic way. And so when we think about schools wrestling with this, that's where LDC comes in. It's in helping schools fine tune their goals. One of the goals that we use, and you can bring back to your context, is this problem of practice document. It's always grounding the work that we do in things that matter to teachers, to buildings, to administrators, to systems. It's building, I like Jeanette from Davis. She coined this hashtag modules with a purpose, and she's been using that with her induction program this year. And so it's really about thinking, what are the problems of practice that we want to address within our system, and how do we use LDC as a resource, and the learning that we have and the experiences that we can create for teachers to build supports for them. Equity for teachers in their learning, and equity for students in their learning. And that's really the goal. And so by having these problems of practice and using that as your target, then you can build your system and your approach from there. And so our example schools use this document to identify the goals or problems of practice that they wanted to use the resources of LDC to support. They looked at curriculum alignment as being an area that they wanted to focus on and strengthen, and various different programs across their journey of trying to improve curriculum alignment didn't quite do what they had hoped they would do. And so they wanted to create a stronger plan that really honed in on those teacher skills that they needed to develop so they could see that more lasting change. And so that's where the competencies come in. And so there's a link to the competency document. Well, they're supposed to be. It's on our syllabus. And so with this course, we're going to be focusing in on 1A and 2A, but these are also the key competencies that this school district focused on. Recognizing where you see alignment in the goals or expectations within an assignment, those benchmarks, and being able to also select what those goals are to drive an assignment that meets those benchmarks. And so it's really about being able to identify and see it quickly within tasks that they're aligned to standards and they're moving the way that you want them to, as well as design standards that do that as well. Assignments that meet the demands of the standards as well. And so what they did is they thought about their system as a whole and decided where they needed to have the curriculum strengthened. Where do they want to align their curriculum to the standards and align that work to their collaborative planning practices to get people on the same page, not just in the use of assignments, but also in the planning and the formative assessments. And to make this systematic by aligning this work directly to the curriculum and what they are guaranteeing for their students across their system. This is just an example map, but there are some really nice Kentucky maps that have been created over the last few years where you can see where these anchor assignments can be used to really build those guarantees within your curriculum. And so they took this system, they decided they wanted to address a problem of practice. They knew they wanted to anchor it into their curriculum as guarantees for their students. So then they identified modules that they would either need to create to hit certain standards where there were gaps, or where there are already assignments created, ones that they could use in common to really help strengthen their entire system. And so they created a work plan, they had a coach, they had a site lead, and they started thinking about, how do I ensure that there's time during the day? I protect their time. I give them access to resources such as the teacher learning kit to give teachers the professional learning supports that they need. I have data I can progress monitor and make sure I know where I need to lean in and support teachers in the work that they're doing. And they created a whole change system. And so they used online courses, blended or virtual coaching, and iterative feedback within core tools to build those strong relationships and really move their system forward. So all of this is grounded in student work, which is why when we get into the instructional cycles, you'll see that they begin and end with student work every time. Because ultimately, these are our goals. The outcomes for students is what we care about. And so we always want to make sure we're grounding it in that, because that's what helps keep it job embedded and tied to the real work of teachers every day. And so as they move through, teachers showed evidence of building these target competencies through the work that they were doing in designing modules and getting authorship badges where you could see the teacher skill growing, but you could also see the student skill growing in the student work with each instructional cycle. And so it led to change, significant change for them in their buildings, in the data. And so it was really about deciding on time, leadership, how you're going to build it, and making sure that the whole system was tied to those problems of practice. So there was a clear purpose in the work that they were doing that was connected to the work of students. And so, that was a whole lot. I want to pause for a minute, and I'm actually going to go back to this slide about problems of practice. This problems of practice slide is one that you all looked at while you were getting ready for today. Spent some time in getting started and why do this work and thinking about what might your problem of practice be. And so if I go back to my home page, I move into Core Tools, I go to my Learn tab, and I wait patiently for the spinning wheel to go. When I get into design assignments, and we'll take you on this pathway in a minute and have you go here yourself, but I want to go to this why do this work. It was one of the sections that you were exploring in Core Tools and taking a look at. And you can see a lot of this task predicts performance, using LDC, not doing LDC, which were some of those highlight points. But why are you here, and really thinking about what problem of practice do you want to address in this work, or do you see connected to your role that you really want to focus on as kind of a guide as you move forward and think through your own task design, because part of this course is going to be designing your own task. And so what I'd like you to do is think about these problems of practice. I could go back to the slide where this might be a little bit larger, but go ahead in the chat. What is the problem of practice that you see as being your guide moving forward? Is it around rigor and assessment or assignments as far as the rigor of literacy tasks for instruction or assessment? Is it the quality of these tasks, or is it about instruction for you and really about how you make discipline-specific instruction, right? Or is it systems alignment? What's your kind of guiding problem of practice that you want to see this work building towards? Go ahead and post that in the chat. I know it is hard. It's hard to you want to select all of them. And one of the things that if you use this chart in a context, and part of what this school did is they just honed in on one of these things at a time, right? And really think about what that means for them. I see a lot of instruction and some systems alignment. And you can dig even deeper into it too, and because all of these align to some of the competencies and thinking about how to really focus on that. And so if you're looking at instruction and you think about your own task design, is there something that you want to model or support as you're designing that? For example, the first one here of instruction is consistency of tasks and instruction. And so that's that guaranteed part. And so maybe you might find that when you look at some of these Kentucky resources, you want to really hone in on filling some of those gaps so there can be more consistency as different teachers and systems in Kentucky use the resources that are available. Or maybe in Jeffco specific, there's something that you know you want to be working towards. And so really have that in mind as you're moving forward in this work. And so I want to take us out of kind of thinking big picture in the sense of what are our goals to where do we see evidence of when we've met those goals. And so part of what I was talking about earlier is how the work is always driven by evidence and student outcomes. And so we're going to start today by looking at some student work. And so from your home screen, and now I am actually going to have you navigate with me for a little bit. Oh, yes, Kevin. So exciting. We are going to do this, Kevin, and so hopefully if it's a particular piece of student work you've already done, maybe you'll see something new in this, and so this should be great. So when you're here on your home screen, and so at this point, because I'm sharing my screen, you should have hit escape so you can be navigating between your window and still seeing my window. I'm going to model how to get there, and then we're going to spend some time just digging in, okay? So you can use the link to core tools that Kelly put into the chat. And from your home screen, you'll click on the Learn tab, which will take you here to all your course listings. We're going to be spending all of our time in design assignments. There are two different pathways. There's design assignments and common assignments. Design assignments are for when you're creating a unique task and building your own, as well as common assignments, which is really about using a pre-existing task or module, maybe one that was written as part of a common assignment project, and seeing where the alignment is and learning how to customize it and adapt it for your own classroom. And so within design assignments, you're going to go ahead and open up IC1. It's divided into three. These IC1, 2, and 3 are all instructional cycles. IC1 really hones in deeply on the task, even though it goes through a full instructional cycle. IC2 hones in deeply on skills, and IC3 hones in deeply on instruction. With Blended Foundations, our goal is to submit a task for national peer review, get badged as a task author, and so we're going to be staying in IC1 for this section and for Blended Foundations. And so what you'll do is go ahead and click on Session 2, Analyze Student Work for Evidence of Focus Standards. So when you click on that, oops, somehow I clicked the wrong button. You should be in Session 2. And so if you scroll down just a tiny bit, you'll see this image of the three-legged stool. And what that's really about is a visual representation of having focus standards and a focus standard cluster to really guide task design. We're going to be talking a lot more about that during weeks 2, 3, 4, but we're going to scroll right past that for right now and down to this action item where it says Code Student Work for Standards. What you're going to do is click to access an ELA module. When you click that, it opens up this sidebar on the right. And in the sidebar are directions. And so it's kind of like as you're doing the content in the main screen, the sidebar on the right functions as a coach kind of sitting over your shoulder, helping to guide you through decision points if you're designing your task, or in this case, thinking points as you take a look at student work and code it for standards. And so we're going to go ahead and open up the Art of Persuasion. And so click on the Art of Persuasion, and that will open up here in the main content, and your sidebar will stay open as you're working. And so I see that I'm here, Rick's here, Kevin's here, Janice is here. Got a couple of Ricks in here. Cindy, Holly, and Mickey are all in here. Let's see. I don't think I saw Kevin yet, but you should be able to get in here in a second. If you have any issues logging in, post them in the chat. Ellie and I will be happy to make sure that you get here. Trying to talk a little slowly so everybody can get here, no problem. So what I'd like you to do is take a look at number 3 in the directions, and it says, what is the task asking students to think about? Where do you see the language of the focus standards in the task prompt? Yeah, I see you there, Kevin. I just wanna, there you are. I see you. Sorry. And so take a look at the task prompt, scroll down here, read the prompt, and read what the focus standards are. And then tell me what you think. Go ahead and unmute. What is the task asking students to think about? What do you notice? How does Martin Luther King Jr. utilize persuasive techniques to influence others? After reading King's I Have a Dream speech, write an essay in which you analyze the rhetorical devices King uses to support his argument. Support your discussion with evidence. RI5, analyze in detail how an author's ideas or claims are developed and refined by particular sentences, paragraphs, or larger portions of the text. Cite strong and thorough textual evidence to support analysis of what the text says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from the text. And W4, produce clear and coherent writing. Organization and style, task, purpose. So sometimes this helps facilitate conversation, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute. Just unmute. What do you notice in this tab? Oh, was people trying to read off my screen? I'm sorry if that messed anybody up. What do you notice in this task? What is it asking people to think of, students to think about? Kevin, you said 9.10.1 is clearly evident. Why would you say that?
I have to unmute. I'm bouncing back and forth from these screens. I've got an issue. But when I look at the task, well, first I went to the, I kind of did it backwards. I looked at the standards first, and then eyeballed the task to look for, grains. And it definitely requires the students to analyze, what's being said and how it's being said in Martin Luther King's speech. And when I already looked at the coded work, and it was very valuable. I mean, I stopped what I was doing with when I got to this point, and went back to my current task and added some standards so that I could coach the students how to code their own work.
That's awesome. But we're going to code work now. Darn it. You're supposed to not look at that yet.
Oh, man. I was just flying through. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. How about other people? What's something else that you see in the thinking work of this task? What is it asking students to really think about and consider?
Well, they're having to analyze Dr. King's persuasive techniques that he's using in his speech. So that the analyzing, that really gets them thinking deeply about, breaking apart the speech and looking for specifics.
Excellent. And I think that's really interesting to think about in relationship to that leading question in it, where it's about influencing others. And so really looking at which rhetorical devices is he using, these persuasive techniques, and how are they doing in influencing others, right? How do they function in that role? It's kind of almost implicitly tied to that analysis in some way, right? Because of that question. So what we're going to do is, oh yeah, go ahead.
Rick shared something similar in the chat. He said students are looking for keywords and phrases that King uses to persuade the listener or reader to see his vision. And the standards are aligned with the task.
Excellent. So in the student work, we should see evidence of this analysis. We should see keywords and phrases. We should see them called out as being particular rhetorical devices and how they function in that way, right? That development piece from the analysis. And so what you'll do is scroll down to the bottom, and I just now realized that I'm not sharing my screen as I'm trying to model scrolling. That didn't work very well. Because this pulls out a Word document, I'm going to share my whole screen. So I apologize that you're going to see yourself at the same time that you're looking at my screen. As we come down here and open up the blank rhetorical devices sample, and what that'll do is it'll download a Word document, open up that Word document, and we're going to take a few minutes and actually code this. Won't be able to necessarily get through the whole thing because we're only going to take a few minutes and then we're going to talk about what we found. However, what I'd like you to do is color code the two standards. And so here, when you open the document, you'll see the task again. You'll see the standards. And this time, we're just going to focus in on the reading standards right now. And so I want you to think of two things. First, where do you see evidence of the first standard? Code that in yellow. Where do you see evidence of the second standard? And also, are there any places where the standards kind of overlap, right? If you think about it, you're not just looking for textual evidence. Did they cite something? But did they cite something that supports the analysis of what they say, right? So you're kind of looking for something a little bit different. That could be one of those crossover kind of things. If you would like, you can even make those places where you see them really joined together its own color. If that, whoa, that's really dark. That does not work as a highlighter, does it? Let's try again. Whoa, now I highlighted too much. I need to hit undo on this document, but you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. I just can't get to the top of the document to hit undo. There we go. Okay, so take a few minutes, read through this, and go through and color code the student work for where you see evidence of the standards and the interplay of the standards. So I'll let you focus on your own screen. I'll stop sharing so I can code my own. Take some time and code it. Let's do about, let's see how far we get in about 4 minutes, and then we're going to come together and reflect. Yeah, I know people are actively highlighting and engaging with this text. What I'm going to have you do is pause on the highlighting and the marking of the text. And Kelly's going to post a list of partners. And in the chat, so if you haven't opened the chat yet, it'll be bright orange at the bottom of your Zoom window. If you open that up, right where you enter to write your post in the chat, there's a blue bar. It has a little drop-down menu. You can select anyone's name who's in the Zoom meeting, and you can start a private chat with them. We're going to do a turn and talk, and you're going to have a chance to do a private chat about what you've noticed. And so what I'd like you to do is, so Ricky and Mickey, Carrie and Rick, Daniel, sorry, Janice and Kevin, Cindy and Holly, go ahead and start a private chat about what did you notice? What do you see as working well with the students showing evidence of standards, or maybe where it's not working well as far as students showing evidence? Okay, give you a few minutes to chat, and then we're going to debrief as a group. I'm going to have you start wrapping up your partner chats. While you're doing that, I'm going to share my screen one last time. Because we started with looking at this sidebar and having it take us through these directions. And I just want to call out that there are directions telling you how to read the paper, code it, some questions to have in your mind to drive your thinking as you're coding this, but also I want to use these questions to kind of guide our conversation. So what evidence did you see of the first standard? What evidence did you find or not find of the second reading standard? Did you find any evidence of how the student, was connecting the two standards? So what were some of the key things that you and your partner were chatting about as far as your noticings or your wonderings when it comes to this task and this student's work? And so I'm going to stop my share again because I like being able to see everybody in this gallery view when we're having conversations. It feels much more real. go ahead and unmute and just talk about what you noticed.
I think the student did a really good job of addressing both standards. So there was really good use of citing the textual evidence, but then going back and explaining how that textual evidence supported King's message in the speech. And every time the student would go back and explain that. So I saw good evidence of textual evidence, but then also tying it back to the other standard and looking at King's ideas in the writing.
I agree, Cindy. And we talked about how I think oftentimes for students, it's much easier for them to pick out a quote or to identify evidence, and it will be off balance with the analysis. But I thought this one actually had a strong balance on the side of analysis, at least the part that I processed. And I would have been thrilled to see that from my 10th graders last year.
How about others? Do you see any places where you thought it was not meeting any part of the standard or the way they connected? Okay, maybe I just roped us two down a lane. Okay, what else did you notice in it? I was trying to get some discourse. Rick, Holly, Kevin, Carrie?
Well, yeah, what I found is in going, it took me a couple times. I had to keep going back to the standard before I was comfortable with the coding. And like I said earlier, I could just see such a great value. I mean, if it works for me, I can imagine how the students are going to engage in this and the rigor it's going to bring to them.
One thing I will add on it's not negative, but it would be an easy revision when in the paragraph that talks about ethos, the ethical appeal. So an appeal is created by a device. And so the student didn't really talk about the device that created the appeal. It was, he or she gave the quote and then said it's ethical because of this, but it doesn't really analyze the rhetoric that's used to create that appeal.
Excellent. Well, oh, go ahead, Holly.
Well, I was just going to say I'm having trouble because I just have a big white screen. The student work isn't coming up for me. So I had it for a minute and then it disappeared. And so I don't know what's going on.
I struggled with that earlier. It was an internet connection. I had to try a few times and pull it back up. So that might be an issue.
So I'm kind of a loser on this.
Oh, sorry, Holly. Was that ever happens again, let us know in the chat right away and we'll try to help you problem solve. But because it's a Word document, it gets downloaded. Usually, I know for me in Drive, in Chrome, it just opens up in the bottom of the window. But sometimes if something changes, then you lose it and you have to re-download it. That's the hard part with it being a Word document that's separate. However, that's what allows you to be able to individually highlight what you're looking for. So lots of really great conversation. These are the kinds of conversations that we're going to have about alignment. Do you see alignment within the student work? Do you see alignment within task and expectations when it comes to standards? And sometimes we're going to see things that other people aren't going to see. And sometimes we're going to disagree or challenge or push back or say, well, I'm not really sure that I saw it that way, and maybe I saw it this way. And so we're going to be building that professional community where we can have those kind of conversations and all learn and grow together. And so I'm really excited about that. I'm going to be handing it over to Kelly to tell us a little bit about next steps, and then we're going to be doing our last bit, which is always a final word whip around things that resonate with you from a session. Before I hand it over to Kelly, I am going to share my screen one last time super quickly because this will make sense with some of what Kelly's talking about. When you're back at session 2, and looking at this activity. In this right-hand column in this active facilitation, there are some really nice handouts here for helping you facilitate this kind of activity with others. And so when you open those up, it can be really helpful to have a guide to think about some different things to look at and to consider specifically when it comes to the standards in these texts. And so there's facilitator guides for the TAS and ELA as well as the TAS and science. So you can use these in different ways in your content. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Kelly.
All right. So we just want to talk a little bit about our next steps. Part of our process here is we're functioning as learners. So we are learning a lot through this coursework, but we're also working as leaders. And so one of our goals is that you really start thinking about, who you can work with in your department or who your colleague that you could work with, and start determining a group of about 5 teachers that you could try out analyzing standards with this group between now and week 8. And so don't panic, week 8 is in February. So just start thinking forward and thinking about those around you and how you can share your learning with others. And so in the presentation, also on the syllabus, there is a spreadsheet that you can click on and add the name of those people that are going to be forming part of your little group, putting those in that spreadsheet where you can kind of confirm those people that you're going to be working with within your building, your district, or just colleagues that may be in the department with you. We also now want to go to our final word whip. And so if you will go to your chat section, change it back to everyone. You've had it on private conversations with an individual partner. So if you change it back to everyone and we're thinking about you're going to enter one word that really resonated you from this afternoon's session. So just one word that resonated with you, just share with everyone in that final word whip.
Yep, and we are right at time. So as you put your word in there, we want to thank you for our week 1, and we'll continue to be digging in ways like this analyze standards, just like looking at student work. We're going to be doing lots of real learning together, digging in and getting messy. So excited to do this with you. So if you have any questions, Kelly and I will stay on for a few minutes after this. However, for some of you, it's the end of a long day. Some of you are getting right at the end of the long day. And so we want to thank you for your time.
And do you remember everything's in your syllabus for next week, along with any of the resources we've used today?
Yep. And I'll be linking the slide deck later this week to the syllabus. Okay. It's your wife's birthday. Oh, wonderful. Got good plans for it?
Well, I probably can't tell you all of them, but we're going to go grab them.
Yeah, thank you for not telling us all of that. That's just
You're
fun.
welcome.
Oh, that's too funny. See, this is going to be a good group.
Camera. Bye.
We just got to loosen up a little, right? Excellent.
All righty.
All right,
Enjoy
you guys.
yourself.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you all.